Hello and welcome back to Dr. Logic Awkwardly Does Logic. Last video, I mentioned systems S4 and S5 and promised to give you a little bit of background as to what about systems 1 to 3? How come nobody ever talks about them? So systems 1 to 5 are due to the founders of modern modal logic, Lewis and Langford. So they were the first people to systematically start approaching the study of modality from a logical point of view. This isn't the first time that modal logic was done. There was plenty of people dealing with logic and modalities in history, but they are kind of the first ones to do it within the context of modern logical developments. So their motivation wasn't actually about modality. They didn't say, here are notions of necessity and possibility, how can we analyze them logically? But rather, they were motivated from unhappiness with implication, in particular, material implication, as it was used in Russell's Principia Mathematica. This is the ordinary conditional that we see in propositional logic, wherein anything implies a truth and falsity implies anything. So these facts are sometimes called the paradoxes of material implication. They're not really paradoxes in the sense that they give you P and not P, but they're paradoxical in the sense that some people want to resist these and say this isn't actually a very good account of what implication is. So Lewis and Langford's route to modality was through how to deal with the conditional. And in particular, they introduced the notion of strict implication, contrasting with material implication, which is basically material implication with a box on the front. So this is a notion of necessity, which doesn't, or a notion of implication, which doesn't happen accidentally, but will always happen. So once you have this as your basic notion, the systems that they then developed on the basis of this don't have material implication. They always have this modalized form of implication, this strict implication. As a result of which, some of the early systems are modal in flavor because they have this notion of necessarily P implies Q, but they don't work in the same way as here's propositional logic, let's add modalities on top, precisely because they don't have the material implication lying underneath everything. It's always going to be strict. So I'm going to very briefly say why we don't talk about systems 1 to 3, why we do talk about systems 1 to 4, and then because I had so much fun reading up on this and seeing exactly how the systems are related, how they were developed, I might do a few digression videos following up after this where we look at system 1, system 2, and system 3 individually. Basically, though, think back to the systems that we have been working on the basis of propositional logic. One of the key rules that we have in System K and in everything that we built on this is the rule of necessitation. And that says, if you can prove something, then you can also stick a box on the front of it and prove that as well. So every theorem that you can derive in a system is also necessary. Now, systems 1 to 3, one of the reasons why they don't get considered very frequently in kind of contemporary modern modal logic is they don't validate this rule. There are theorems which are not necessary. You can't just go and add boxes on to everything that you've already gotten. And this has to do with as you'd expect, with the axioms that are chosen and with the rules of inferences that you have. The rule of necessitation is simply not something that is added to the systems. So this is why I want to kind of do some separate videos and talk about each of the systems in turn, because they're really quite interesting. But for the purposes of understanding, why do we talk about systems S4 and S5, and why are they so central to our discussions of modality, and why does nobody ever talk about 1 through 3? It comes down to this fact. They don't validate the rule of necessitation, which means you can't give crypty semantics for them. You have to kind of have an alternative understanding of what is going on with the modalities in order to make sense of this. And this is because the systems were not developed to give an account of modality. They were developed to give a better account of implication. So S4 and S5, which are kind of the main systems that we're going to be looking at, are the first of these 5 systems that satisfy the rule of necessitation. That's why we talk about them. They fit nicely into our semantics. They have many good connections with other types of logic and also with developments in mathematics. You can give very nice algebraic semantics or topological semantics, things that we're not going to talk about probably for quite some time to come in this series. But they are very nice and well behaved in ways that systems 1 to 3 are not. So there's your very quick little introduction as to what these systems are, why you never hear about 3 of them, and why you do hear so much about the other 2. And because I think it will be fun, join me for a couple of digression videos next where I'll go through each of systems 1, 2, and 3 so that you at least have a sense of what they are, what kinds of things you can do with them, because they are pretty cool. Maybe people should do more with them. So join me next time. We'll look at these neat little systems. And until then, cheers. See you later.